Welcome to the Stamps by Judith May 2014 Project of the Month. For this project, we're just going to get a little more involved in one particular card and then have a few offshoots. But the card we're going to do is this fence line with birch trees and just really dress it up. Let me move some of these aside. Excuse me if my voice cracks a little bit. Okay, we're going to start off with our fence line stamp, and all I'm going to do is ink it up really well, stamp it off, or stamp it across the ink pad. You don't need a huge ink pad because the ink pad is raised. Okay, make sure I have my cardstock, and we'll get it about here. And I know this is a bigger card, but if you want to do it smaller for card making and the larger one lends itself more to scrapbooking, just do a portion of it. So I have my fence line. And what I'm going to do is grab rocks. There's my little rock stamp. Mine's kind of grubby. It's well loved. Stamp and extend out my fence to get my rocks. And I'm just going to blot my stamps off by to clean them on water with paper, or water on paper towel. Excuse me, I'm a little confused. And I'm going to take my birch trees and stamp one there. I want my birch trees down here to be a little bit shorter, so I'm going to cover up my page. Let's pull them down. And I had shorter birch trees, and maybe one that's a little bit taller, overlapping. So I have some birch tree groups. And I'm going to take my fence line, or my fence post, individual fence post, and put a few trailing little posts around. So now I essentially have my whole border, if this was your scrapbook page or card, stamped. And now it is just a matter of coloring it. I'm using Tombow Watercolor Markers, and my line will be fine because I did use a quick drying pad for watercolors. It has a drying agent in it, so my line will not bleed or would not be as likely to bleed. First thing I'm going to do is start off adding a little gray to my birch trees. I'm not going to worry too much about staying too close to the line. Fill these in. A little more coloring involved in this one. Not going to use a lot of different colors, just color quite a bit. I'm going to put some gray on my rocks. It's a squeaky marker. Okay. Then I'm going to grab my green, just a soft green, go in, add some green around where there may be grasses sticking up or leaves to flowers. Okay. And I'm going to grab my blue. Everything has more than one color, so I'm going to add some blue into my green leaves and actually put some blue on my rocks as well. Okay. You can see that I'm not putting a whole lot of thought in where I'm putting the color. I'm just sort of putting it on there almost like I'm painting. I'm going to take and pull a little blue up the trunk of my birch, some of my birch trees. Birch trees actually have quite a bit of color in them. Okay, I'm going to grab light brown, color my fence posts very quickly. And I'm going to pull the brown up the trunk of the birch tree into the little skinny branches a little bit. Put some brown on my rocks. Brown rocks. Okay. And then I'm going to take my soft brown and go all the way under my rocks so I have some dirt so my rocks aren't just floating in the air. And what I'm going to do is take my light brown and pull a little of some dark brown off the dark brown marker and blend the two colors together. This does not hurt my light marker at all. It blends the colors. Then I'm going to take the dark marker and go in and add a little bit of a shadow. Oops. Make sure you switch them before you do this. I'm actually going to add a little bit of dark to the bottom of the birch trees as well. They're shadowed where they're coming up out of the ground. And the biggest trick is putting the right lids back on the right markers. And I'm going to take, for the birch trees, this is a little bit of a soft teal, and I'm going to put a little bit of that. It's a teal or an icy blue. I'm going to put a little bit of that into the birch trees. You don't even really notice it, but it adds a nice extra touch. Put a little bit on my rocks. Oops, and I forgot to stamp one thing. I'm going to take this little 3 flowers. Ooh, I was missing something. I'm going to cover up my rocks at the bottom. These 3 flowers. Add a few flowers sticking out here and there. So I have a spot for a little bit of extra color. And over here. Alright, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to quickly go back, add a little bit of green and blue to those stems on those flowers. And all of us, also I realized I missed one branch of my tree over here. Got my blue and my green. I want some bright color, so I'm going to color these guys yellow. And the fence line has a few little flowers on it around the posts as well, so I'll color those yellow. You can always go back. I missed a few more stems. Pick the color up. This is a soft orange. Add a soft orange in to my flowers because you always want to have more than one color. I'm going to take a dark orange and just hit the centers a little bit. May not seem like it makes a huge difference, but it does really make the flowers pop. Okay, set those aside. I'm going to go in with my soft gray marker and add a few shadows. And all I'm doing is putting shadows around it. I'm not worrying where the light source may be. Just sort of outlining the whole thing. And that makes it pop. like that. Oops, and we want to add a little wildlife to our fence line. So I'm going to start off, this is a little chickadee stamp, one of those up in the tree. I'll give him a friend. And then we're going to take this little guy, it's an owl, and we'll have him sitting over there on the fence post. To color these guys in, even though they're tiny, I'm going to give them cheeks. Because anything that has a face, you want to have cheeks. There's a reason that we wear blush, and they sell blush in the stores. It helps give us life, makes us look alive. I'm going to take a soft brown on the chickadee. A little bit of a soft brown on the owl. And a gray on the chickadee. A little gray on the owl. And for the chickadee, I'm going to grab a dark gray a little bit. Color his wings. And then for the owl, I'm going to grab the dark brown. Go back in with the soft brown. Oops, get that off the page. Soft brown. And we don't want to forget their little tiny beaks. Even though they're little, they need color. I'm going to take my gray marker, go around, make my birds pop. So essentially you have everything colored. Now we get to dress it up a little bit. But I want to connect my posts. So this is just a fine line pilot pen, and I'm going to add my barbed wires on these separate posts. Squiggle a little line, put some X's for the barbs. Don't have to connect them, maybe something ran through, or you can have it connect all the way across. Do that. And then I'm going to take a little stubby stamp, if I can find it, of a spriglet in my Hunter Green ink. And I'm just going to go back to this paper I used at the beginning, tear a little piece off. I'm going to take my spriglet, let's see, we'll start over here, and I'm going to add a few little spriglets down into my rocks and grass. Kind of softens it a little bit. All the way over there. And then you can take a little tiny flower stamp. I'm going to use the AA08 and add some little purple flowers to my little spriglet bunches. Gives it a little more color. Now essentially this thing could be done just the way it is, or we're going to take it one step further, and you'll notice my birch trees are in bloom. They're budding out a little bit in the hopes of spring actually coming. Where we live, I don't think it is coming this year. What I'm going to do is take this little leaflet stamp, it's a stick stamp, in Hunter Green, and just randomly add little leaves here and there. You can group them together, or you can have them singly. Let's see. Put a couple up there. Alright. Chickadees sitting by a few. And I want to make this blend in a little bit, so what I'm going to do is grab my green and just throw a little green on those leaves, since everything else on the page was pretty much colored, maybe not completely. A little green, grab my blue. And you'll be able to see this finished card online as well, so you can look at it up close. Because there's a lot of little details in it, little things you added. And the last step is I'm going to take my dots, dot stubby, and blue ink, and just lightly trail some dots in and around things. It softens it. That. Okay. And then one more step. Across this card you'll notice there's this little line of dots. We have a stamp that does that. Or what you can do is take your pen and just dot your dots. A little trail of, I like to call them walking dots. Just sort of walk your eye across the page. And go all the way across, weaving in and out. And then you can add your saying, and there is your finished card. That's just one of the ones we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do this card. It's the same process, fence post and rocks, just a little bit larger. I'll take my large fence post, and I'm going to stamp it down. Take my rocks and stamp rocks off to the side, and I'm going to go in with that same little 3 flower stamp, and I lost my mask, so I'm going to tear another one. Take my little 3 flower stamp and get some flowers coming out of there. So I'd have my image all stamped, and then you would color this in. I'm just not going to do it completely, but you'd color it in. I put a little brown on the post. Again, brown on the rocks, gray on the rocks. Get the idea from the last one. Green, extend it out a little bit. To color the flowers, I had a purple, I guess I didn't grab it. We'll do orange, or yellow and orange again, but on my sample card I have pinks and purples. But you would throw your flowers, your colors on your flowers. And then what you would do on another piece of paper, once you got these done, is stamp your fence post and your rocks a second time and cut them out. As if you notice on this card, I have dimension, I have wire to create fun barbs. And what you do there is you take just any gauged wire, I have some silver wire, and you get it all crunchy, and grungy, kind of bent and wrinkly. And you would take a little bit of double stick, slide this right there. I use double stick foam because I want a little dimension. And you put it on the back of your post, and you put foam across the whole post. I can get the back off. Peel the back off and take your grungy wire, crunched up wire, put it on your post. You can do that as many times as you want. The sample, I have 3 chunks of wire. Then you would take and cover up your post, put a little bit of double stick on the back of your rocks, put this down a little bit, you can extend them out, and you have fence post with rocks and some dimensional wire. So it's the same principle as the first card, just dressed up a little bit. The last one we're going to do is we're going to turn one of our trees and have it blossoming out. So I'm going to take this stamp. It's a newer stamp. It's a leafy tree. And I'm going to stamp it down. Ink it up. Alright, take that. There's my leafy tree. And to create the grass on the bottom, I'm going to take this little stubby, it's a little grass tuft, and start off putting a few little grass tufts next to it. But I want my grass tufts to kind of taper down so they're not so tall. I'm going to put a piece of paper and actually start angling them down so they're getting shorter and shorter. And then I have little grass tufts. And then to color this, I'm just going to quickly go in and grab my same green marker and just throw blobs of color all over it. Okay. I'm not really worrying too much about where it goes. Alright. Throw some green down in the grass. Again, always more than one color. Throwing some blue in there. Okay. And this time I want to have a little bit different tone to my green grass and my green leaves. I want it to be sort of the bright, freshly blossoming leaves. So I'm throwing a little bit of lime in there. Just changes the tone a little bit. I still have my blue and my green. This is just maybe springing it up a little bit. Okay. A little bit of green, limey green down in the grass. Grab my brown, a little bit of brown on the trunk, up into the tree a little bit, across the bottom of my grass so my tree isn't floating. And then I'm going to take that same dark brown that I used at the very beginning, pick a little bit up to shade my stem, my trunk of my tree. Okay. Oops, I almost put the wrong lid on the wrong marker. That's what you need to watch for. I'm going to take and shadow it just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to add my gray. Pop it off the page. Alright. And when we want to turn this maybe into some sort of blossoming cherry or something like that. So I'm going to grab my little solid flower. This is a Dusty Rose ink pad. And I'm going to put flowers in my tree. Stamping more than once so my flowers are growing or blossoming throughout the tree, not just on the front of it. You put a couple down in the grass, they've fallen down. That. And then the last step is I'm going to take this little tiny bird and put a little bird in my tree. And I'm going to find my pink. Color his little belly pink, his little cheek pink. Go back with that ice blue color. Color his back blue. Add a little darker blue, and there's my little bluebird of spring. And I'm going to take my dots and just sort of soften the whole thing again. Blue is just a nice little soft background. And I can take my fine line pen my little trailing dots. Maybe coming around the bird a little bit. And there's your spring tree. That's went from just a leafy tree to a tree in bloom. And that's the May 2014 project of the month.